So the Israelis decided to bomb an aid distribution center in Gaza today that belongs to the United Nations. Now, let me explain something to you. In a war, what the United Nations do is they will go to the warring parties and they will give them their coordinates on a daily basis, specifically so they don't get bombed, right? They'll come and say, we are right here. We've got X amount of workers. They're doing this. They'll be in this area from this time to that time. Please don't kill us. What do the Israelis do? They go and kill them. So there's an aid distribution center. They killed one UN worker and they injured 22 civilians. You get the idea. You get the idea. And then, of course, you know, watch Blinken try and weasel his way out of this. They have no shame.
What we've seen in terms of food, as well as other supplies, going to the second part of your question, is, of course, the Israelis have been not only allowing food in, they have been working to make sure that it gets in and gets to people who need it. We've seen throughout this process, first the opening of Rafah back in October, after my first visit to Israel.
Again, I find this very funny because if first of all, there's no food coming in, there's no food coming in, and then on top of that, the little amount of food that is left, that is in the UN or Unrwa distribution centers. What do the Israelis do? They go and bomb it. So, like, to make sure that everyone starves. So when he says that there's food coming in, I mean, how can you believe this man? He's such a liar.
So I saw the reports of the strike today on the Unrwa facility. And first and foremost, our condolences go out to the families, the loved ones of those who apparently lost their lives in this strike. I don't know the details of what happened. I do know, based on what we've heard from the Israeli government, that the IDF is investigating, the Israeli Defense Forces are investigating this incident. And of course, we will look closely to see what that investigation produces. Without getting into the specifics of this incident, because again, I don't know the facts, I think it does, as a general matter, underscore something I talked about a few minutes ago, and that's the imperative of having much better and much more consistent deconfliction. Humanitarian workers, the agencies, they need to be able to do their jobs with as much security and as much confidence.
Why are you telling us? And how do you not know the details? I mean, I find this incredible. Every time they ask them something uncomfortable, oh, well, you know, I haven't seen the report, so I can't comment on it, you know, because I haven't seen it. Yeah. Okay. This guy is the equivalent of the, you know, for those who are European, he's the equivalent of a foreign minister, right? He's the foreign secretary. So he is the top envoy sent by the executive, and he, you know, the United Nations is obviously there's a separate post for U.S. ambassador to the UN in each headquarters. But nevertheless, you know, his top liaison would be with the United Nations. So especially during a war like this, and not just any war because of its scale, but the fact that UN staff, specifically UN staff, are being hit, and he acts like he doesn't know. I mean, okay, fine. You know what? Let's play devil's advocate. You don't know. Fine. And what about all the others that have been killed? Jesus Christ, I'm losing count. What is it? 158? Now it's 159, I suppose. So what about the other 158 UN staff that have been killed? Never seen before in any war. Can you imagine what that means? Didn't see it in Angola. Didn't see it in Rwanda. Didn't see it before in the same place in Palestine. Didn't see it in Syria. Nowhere have you had this many UN staff murdered. And never mind the civilians and of course the other healthcare workers and aid workers and journalists, of course, right? These all come into the same category. You don't touch them. What about them? What were you telling the Israelis? You say that it's important to protect them. What did you tell them? Because obviously it doesn't fucking work, does it? Excuse my French. Again, it's very difficult not to swear when you're dealing with this kind of nonsense.
This is possible. And look, you're in a war zone. You have a terrorist group that is firing from hospitals, from schools, from.
Really, you have a terrorist group. Well, how many UN workers have Hamas killed? Because as far as I can tell, it's zero, right? Unless you have anything to the contrary, but you don't. He's not even saying that. He's trying to make it sound that way, but he can't because he knows it's a lie. So who are the terrorists? We got 31,000 people killed and 13,000 of them are children. And you want to talk about terrorism? I mean, Jesus Christ. So, if firing from a school is your definition of terrorism. It's really funny because the Israelis, I swear to God, this is true. They have plaques, like commemorative plaques, outside schools, outside theaters, hospitals, synagogues, commemorating the fact that they hid weapons in there when they were fighting the British, like as if this is their fucking land or something. I swear to God. And I have tons of photographs of them. I'm saving them for another time when I show you. But if you look on Google, you'll find it. It's out in the open. It's on the street.
Apartment buildings, but the Israeli military, the Israeli government have a responsibility and an obligation to do everything possible to ensure that the humanitarians can do their jobs. And among other things, that means making sure that if there's a humanitarian facility that's clearly identified, it's not struck. It means making sure that if there's a supply mission, a convoy, trucks going to a particular place at a particular time, that the Israeli military does everything possible to ensure its secure passage. So this is an ongoing process. It's made, again, incredibly difficult by the environment in which it's being conducted, but it is a responsibility and an imperative for the Israelis.
I mean, is anyone hungry? I've got a word salad. I've got a spare word salad. One of you in the comments said that, hold on, this is really good. Where was it? Victoria Newland is off somewhere shedding her skin like a snake. I love it. I'll talk about her in a second. But, wow. I mean, he's full of it. He's really full of it. I should remind you that, Blinken is Jewish, but I mean, I don't think anything of it. But the thing is that in the West today, and one of the people at the Oscars who won an Oscar spoke about this, that they have the Zionists have conflated, they've stolen basically the Holocaust and also Jewishness, just being Jewish, and that's what you see with people like Blinken. They have basically made sure that their religion now becomes conflated with Zionism. So it's basically it's conflict of interest. It's very difficult for him to separate the two. And the funny thing is that even if we had someone else who's a supposed Catholic or whatever, they do the same thing. They do the same thing because the whole institution, the whole U.S. government is Zionist. It needs an outpost in the Middle East. It needs to have that that colonial lily pad over there so they can, keep everything in chaos, divide and conquer. You must know this. I mean, you must know this. I'm not going to go too much into detail now, but Blinken is really a liar. And honestly, we need to have a Nuremberg 2.0. We need to have it. And one of the people who has to be dragged off there is Blinken. I know this guy, he speaks with like a soft voice and he tries to come across as someone who's reasonable and so on. No. I don't care. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't gloss over his behavior. It doesn't. Some people might argue it makes it worse, because I think some of you in the comments called him Charles Manson or something. Really, really psychotic, evil behavior. You know, he's no better than Netanyahu or Biden. Of course not. I mean, he's been conducting this shuttle diplomacy, as they call it. And just basically what he does is he goes to the Arab countries like Morocco and the UAE, and he asks them to deliver threats to Syria and to Lebanon and so on, right? To the resistance, like, don't do anything. That's what he did in the first stages of the war. And now what he's doing is he's trying to keep the war going as long as possible so the Israelis and the Americans can complete their goals, which we talked about with the gas and so on. And again, I did separate videos on that. So, you know, it's been 6 months now. I mean, 6 months of this. If they weren't shamed by now into stopping, and if they weren't ashamed of themselves by now, nothing is going to stop these people. They're really, truly, in every sense of the word, mass murderers. You need to understand this. You have to remember this. They're mass murderers. 31,000 people dead, killed by Israel, killed by American bombs and German bombs. How scandalous. How scandalous. And even the United Nations are not safe. When I say even the United Nations, because you would think there would be like a semblance of you know, because if they think Palestinians, you know, they should all be killed, they're goyim and all this stuff, you would think maybe they would spare the UN staff, because the UN staff are a mix of local and foreign and so on. No, it's just like straight up, we're going to wipe all of you out from A to Z, all of you. I've never seen anything like this. Here's this is from Martin Griffiths, okay? So he's from OCHA, and he said here that devastating news for our colleagues in Gaza who have borne so much loss already, and for the families they were trying to help. How are we to maintain aid operations when our teams and supplies are constantly under threat? They must be protected. This war has to stop. Now here is where I blame the UN, because this language is too soft. I'm sorry. You know, if you're going to talk about, well, you know, I'll lose my job. What, dude, your colleagues are literally losing their lives. Who cares? What's more important? Like, how many more people in the UN have to die? Like 165? Is it 170? So, does someone have a pair of balls left in Unrwa or OCHA? Again, I'm not trying to knock on their, you know, I'm not trying to pick on them. It's just I'm frustrated, you know. You would think that they have a little more of a louder voice than the Palestinians, because they can liaison with the headquarters. No. Really disgusting. And you have to understand about something about the Americans is that the United States have always violated international law. They've always given the Israelis a pass, but this is different. This is different. I'm not going to show you the next video, but there's a guy who, I mean, it's so horrific. It's so sad. It's someone in Gaza, and he basically he finds his brother on the ground, like in a ditch, while he's going to get food, and it's just.
يا ورد علي يا اخوي حبيب قلبي ولا كنت اموت عشانك علي يا اخوي حبيب قلبي يا ورد علي يا اخوي حبيب قلبي ولا كنت اموت عشانك هو يا الله يا منتصر يا حبيب قلبي.
So, you know, the point is that if you're in Gaza, you're going to get starved to death. If you try to get food, you'll get bombed. And the people distributing the food in the UN are also getting bombed. You cannot reason with the Israelis and the Americans at this point. You cannot reason with them. And then they want to turn around and act like they're more civilized and you know, like they care about human rights, international law. Jesus Christ, I've never seen anything like this.